Welcome to Webinar 4 from the Frontier Incubator's Scaling and Replicating Programs series, Pace to Scale. This is Sam from Social Enterprise Academy, working with Village Capital and the Global Entrepreneurship Network. In this module, we're joined by Carlos from the Global Entrepreneurship Network.
Thanks, Sam, and hello, everybody. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Carlos. And this week is all about pace to scale, which in our minds is always we're wanting change to happen really quickly, and it's lightning fast. Or actually, maybe not. It might take an awful lot longer to grow your organizations, responding to markets or ecosystems that aren't quite ready yet. And so building over time with lots of different people involved and figuring out as we go how to make it work in different contexts. So this module is all about thinking about how we are scaling and the business development and sales focus of our organizations. The learning outcomes for this module. First off, we're going to be looking at new market entry for our scaling, and that may mean within your countries, within different geographies, different areas, or looking at different types of customer as well. We're also going to be considering our process for entering those new markets and doing it really well, looking at who we might be working with and our partners and our customers. And then lastly, also looking at some sales tactics and prioritization so that we're working well with our teams as we're going for business growth. And this module will be followed next time by looking at some more of the financial and pricing aspects of all of that. This is where it fits in the overall series, looking at pace and business development around market strategy, building on the first three modules up to now, which have really looked at our strategic choices, our design, and becoming ready in our teams and as an organization. Here we're looking at new markets and business development. And over the rest of the program, we're going to be looking at then how we resource that going forward. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to Carlos to take us through the next phase of the module. Carlos, over to you.
Thanks, Sam. So the next piece that we're going to be looking at today is about market development strategies and all of the things that we have to do when we're considering growth and scale within individual markets that we're already in, or looking at new markets that we're looking to break into. Just in lining up to all of the learning objectives that we have laid out for this webinar, we'll be touching on all of these in the forthcoming slides. One of the first things to consider here is when we're developing an understanding of market entry prioritization for scaling and the replication of products, ask yourself, what is your product? We're looking here at programs, at platform and technology, or a consulting and service mix. And for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to focus on programs. So when we're defining the type of entry activity that the organization will actually be going through, these scaling activities really fall into these four buckets. We're either in an existing market and we're looking to diffuse across that market even further than we already have. We might be looking to break into a new ecosystem. We might be looking to a new end user group, or this might be an internationalization effort. And the implications of working within each of these is very different than the other. So we're going to run through two examples. The first one is looking at complete market diffusion. And the big question that will guide you throughout this process, if this is where you fit, is how is your brand or product positioned to fill market needs in the market you're currently working in? So I break this down into three different categories. What is actually true? What is a challenge that you are currently facing? And then what are the opportunities? And let's take, for example, we are looking to break into this market. The biggest opportunities that I want to highlight here is definitely an opportunity for team growth and capacity building. What you knew about your market in one lens will definitely change over time as you are looking to grow out this market and the team that will need to address all of those key needs. You're also looking for a lot of strategic win-wins. And when you're looking to find those partners, being able to say that they have key value adds and that you are getting key value adds is going to be a massive, massive help. and conceptualizing how you're going to continue to grow. Then the other thing here is to become a market leader. And then obviously, as you're breaking into your ecosystem even further or into your market, one of the things that we're really thinking of is the deeper your product offering and the more people that you are attracting to these particular programs or to your brand, it definitely positions yourself to be a market leader. And then the last one is definitely new loyalty and higher revenues are key opportunities that we should always be focusing on as they bring on great opportunities for press, for awards, definitely then also for increased funding to scale and grow even further. Now, if we're looking to enter a new ecosystem, one of the things that you should ask yourself is, are we pioneers or are we new players in the market? And then by extension, we also ask ourselves, is the ecosystem developed or is it still budding and growing? And what was true about your current initiatives if we reference the previous slide, you probably knew a lot about your market, but when you go somewhere else, what's likely true is that we probably don't really have a lot of market research initially. We don't have partners immediately where we're looking to go, or maybe we do, but we might not have agreements lined up. There's not much brand equity or there's none at all, simply because of the fact that you're unknown where you're going, and you don't have revenue there because you haven't broken in yet. Now, this poses unique challenges, but also real opportunities. And one of the first ones, again, here on the opportunity slide is to think of replication and training success. If you're able to build your team to be able to replicate what you have done, the successes in operations and at an admin level in your previous markets that you're working in, the training successes that you will be seeing will allow you to replicate, and your team will certainly be well equipped in order to tackle any one of these new issues that might come up in the ecosystem. New partners also equal untold growth opportunities. You might be able to project it, but until it actually happens, it's actually tough to see exactly what the outcome will look like. But new partners, definitely when we're thinking of these opportunities, it's a massive, massive, massive point to consider, because as we're thinking of who are these people that we're going to be working with, who are these stewards in these new areas, we're hoping that it's definitely positive growth and, again, benefit when we look down below to where we're saying, are we disrupting a market or are we just going in to become a leader? It could be both, it could be one, or it could be the other. But certainly positioning yourself right with the types of partners that you'll find and with the team that you already have will definitely lead to some of these outcomes. And finally, the financial success and lower costs will simply happen because of, if you've replicated properly, you've definitely leaned out certain aspects of your operations or admin work, and that in and of itself will allow more flexibility for your team to do other things, including leading to financial success, which could include developing new programs, recruiting others into it, etc. So as we're looking here, one of the things that we need to segue through is to find the right partner organization. And this is really going to help your company with targeting goals for your end users and your participants. The thing that we have to always go back to here is you need to remember your product at the end of the day. Who's using it and who will you be targeting when you go into these new areas? And what we're really looking for are wins all day. I understand, and I think everybody here will agree that this won't be the case always, but this is what we should always be striving to achieve. The more wins we have, the more it improves the morale of the team, the more management and everybody else will be likely to consider further scale and replication based off of successful use cases previously. So again, when we're looking for partners, it's really about thinking of the puzzle, right? We're looking for the right fit. And in reality, it's the perfect fit. And we need to be trying to hit this as much as possible, because compromising in one way or another what we're looking for or what we value in our partner will have implications later as we look to grow and improve. So again, the right piece completes the puzzle, and that's what we're looking for. So consider the process for entering markets or replicating in new areas. And if you're going into a new area or into different or multiple areas, whether they're known or unknown, we need to leverage partners for scale. And this means that there's a couple things that we need to consider. We have our priorities, and that means that we have key needs that as we're looking to grow, we need to hit those. In addition to that, we need to be able to understand what are our strengths in the new markets that we're going into, right? What have we done great in our previous markets, serviced markets? And this means that by leveraging our strengths and by understanding our needs, we'll be able to define a growth plan. Now, what actually happens on the ground is very different than what we put on paper. But the best way to be able to lay out a particular growth plan is to really understand that what we're doing is trying to anticipate what might come up if we are not necessarily as focused on, you know, those little details. And again, details matter. And in our growth plan, we'll be able to definitely focus on some of those things. And then the last one is to do the scoping out and due diligence on your partners. As much as they might be looking for the same thing from us, we have every right and need to be able to do this to protect our brand, to protect our product or service, and definitely, you know, the image that we will be projecting in a new place. Which means that we need to understand, why are these partners so helpful to us? And understanding that our organization or organizations have limited capital resources, which means that we can't always hire the amount of people that we need. And it means that we won't be able to grow internally in the moment the way that we need to make it a 100% perfect growth plan into wherever we're going to go. The fact that we don't have a lot of human capital inputs here or limitations means that there are definitely knowledge gaps on the team that we need to fill, and those knowledge gaps lead to skill gaps. And that's why the partner becomes so perfect. Everything funnels down to the conclusion that we need a partner. Again, if we're going to take a look at an example of what this really looks like, let's assume here that we're a high-tech education company that's specializing in training and development programs for an array of different types of entrepreneurs. But in this case, really what we're looking to is to find a partner that will help us grow into a new country or ecosystem to target our first product to grow into that area, which is an accelerator program. Now, when we're identifying our key needs, it's first and foremost to think of, what do we need out of the partner? Are we looking for infrastructure, which could be office space, it could be you know, IT, et cetera. If we're looking for services, when we're looking for connectivity, does that mean that it's networks? Does that mean that it's introductions for lead generation and business development? Or could this be a funding issue? Do we need to be connected to investors? In reality, there's so many different possibilities for why we would need a partner. It's good to ask ourselves that question. Now, in addition to this, when we're creating this criteria and laying this out, we have to prioritize, if we have multiple needs, what are the ones that we are looking for and weighing heaviest? And then again, when we take a look at the next slide, it's about understanding this criteria. We're the new entrant into the ecosystem and we're trying to execute our plan there. Now, this means that if I'm looking to go into this new place and I have an accelerator program, I'm probably needing to find a partner that is aligned on their technical expertise and with their access to the target users, because when looking at the rest of them, physical infrastructure, a respected brand, and the educator mindset, although they're very important to me because they're on my list, the number 1 and 2 will feed into me being able to be successful with 3, 4, and 5 with that partner. Now, this criteria looks good, and it's definitely more defined than just laying them out on a piece of paper with no organization, but it's then having to define a little bit more to it, right? And when we start to create a matrix out of this, what we're starting to understand is, what does it actually mean to have this technical expertise? And we sit down and we talk to our team and we understand what we do successfully in one place to then go to our other place. And that means that if we're looking for technical expertise, what is the capacity of each person that is on this partner team that will be able to help us grow and scale? How astute are they to mentor? Is that something we need to do? What type of services are they offering that will help the participants that will be consuming our accelerator programs is this aligned again, to the technical expertise that they have? And if we're looking at our access to target users, some of the things that we need to be able to figure is, will they be able to adapt our curriculum to the new market they're looking to break into? I mean, do they know the education, right? And do they know how to position the education to that person? Are they able to really understand what the interests are in programs? Are they data driven? And then physical structure down to respected brand. It's just going to be everything. Do they own their space? Do they have access to space? Is there co-working? Do they just do events? Do they have the access to events? When we're looking at the educator mindset, some of the things that we want to be able to think of is, if we are focusing on understanding something like our events and workshops or the staff network, are they focusing as teachers or are they focusing as business people? With the same thing with connecting to the mailing lists, are we actually trying to focus on just doing outreach, or is everything that they do, including communications, with the lens of this is an instructional opportunity? Now, the next thing that we have to do is to look at understanding our strengths, right? If I have an education company and I've built out multiple programs, I know that my strength going into a new market is the depth of what I'm offering. And if this, for example, is a little diagram of everything that I do well, right? All of the strong programs that I have, I've segmented my markets a lot. And as you can see here, I have things that are relevant for the developing world. I have things that are relevant for tech-focused startups, tech-focused products. I have things for growth and scale businesses that are already in the formal sector completely. And then I have a lot of different programs in line for my different diversity and inclusion groups. I know that I'm doing really well in this because I have training manuals on all of this. That means that anybody that I'm going to partner with will be able to receive the program and operations manuals, take them, and if they are the perfect fit, we are minimizing the risk of watering down our programs and the excellence that we have across this entire matrix, because from left to right, my training manuals are covering the entire spectrum that someone can pick up and go with. And in addition to that, I have case studies to work on. And these use cases are very, very important to also give extra context to whoever is going to be leading these programs or helping us lead these programs wherever it is that we're going to go. Again, all of this is really us positioning ourselves to say, this is where we're good, and here is why we are actually good at what we do. Now, when we need to start defining our growth plan, I see a couple of things here. And oftentimes, the challenge is looking beyond just the first year. And when we're looking to grow into our new market, the first year plan should really be about establishing your enterprise there or your programs there through your partners, and then creating a great use case. Because that great use case in year 2, when you're able to refine what you have done in year 1, the extra value that you will provide to your potential customers will start to show signs of traction. And while that traction might not necessarily happen as cleanly as the left panel that I'm showing you from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 through 5, year 2 is definitely a pivotal point for you to take the lessons from what you have done in year 1. Because from years 3 through 5 is when you really need to start diffusing across this new ecosystem that you've grown into, and then start to expand your product offering so that you can, again, build that great brand, build that deeper legitimacy with the community, and then by extension, add more revenue to your company. Now, the diagram to the right really highlights one thing, and it's about the painful journey and sometimes the arduous journey to get to years 3 through 8. And we will start to see the investment pay off at around this time, because when things really start to take off, then again, the assumptions about what we did in years 1 through 2 need to start focusing in on how are we actually going to sustain the scale that we have hit. Now we need to be able to do one last thing, which is scope out and do due diligence on our potential partners. And again, asking the right questions is the most important thing that you can do when you sit down and talk to these partners. And it's really understanding who are the decision makers, who are the doers, and who are the brand champions individually on that team. Because these organizations are new, they're different, and although we might have had a great introduction to somebody, it's really about understanding how they work and then who is making all of these important decisions to help us do what we need to do. And we also want to know, where are they successful and what are the challenges that they currently face. Everybody has challenges, and it's important for us to know exactly the type of partner we're working with, because if we're attaching our brand to them and we're saying that we're looking for win-wins, we need to help them as much as they need to help us. And then again, the other things that we need to look at here is, this brand that we're looking to work with, these people already have a lot of recognition in their community. What are they saying about it? And then down below, what's the partnership process like? What are the expectations that we have? What are the expectations that they have? And what are the formalities that we have to go through? If we're looking to go into the developing world and we're, in an area that has very refined business practices, one of the things that we need to look at is understanding things like bureaucracy, understanding a lot of these other points, which maybe in the Western world might not be so painful, but definitely where we go somewhere else, we need to consider it. So we're going to take a look at a quick case on partner profiles. And I have laid out a criteria, and I'm not going to go through the entire thing. But if you look to the left, there's a list of things that I have started to consider as I've been diligencing my partner. And then in the middle is the actual commentary on each one of the points that I need to look at. And then on the right, where it says analysis, I'm now refining down to a conclusion. After all of the things that I've had told to me in my meetings, right, here is my reflection. And then down below, I have a verdict. And this partner here is not a fit. And again, I'm not going to go through every single line because I just want to dig down here to the conclusion. This partner did not align to my business model. Even if I could convince them, could their team assimilate the knowledge that I'm bringing to the table? Again, my depth of programs. And then are they able to replicate it? And again, if I have doubts on this one, it's a no. And then can the brand be leveraged effectively? If I'm looking in the previous example at someone that makes their money just doing co-working, and they're basically just landlords, if that's the case, and I'm an education company, is that the right fit? So remember, your selected partner should be a pure value add for your plans to grow and scale. So that means that you need to stay focused on the needs that you have to find the right partner, which means that you need to be hyper-focused, almost to the point of obsession, with finding that person or organization. Because if we take a look at another example, and I go through this and it's a tech park, and seeing all of the different things that I had weighed out with the previous example of my partner diligencing, the conclusion is that this one actually is a perfect fit. Why? The partner has a business model that complements our model. The skill sets are aligned, so that really helps as I'm understanding I'm developing programs. They have the technical expertise to take that through to completion, and the brands work well so we can defend each other's interests. The conclusion here, aligning to our partners involves a couple of things. And it's A, developing relationships with identified partners, allowing a sufficient space for the proper type of diligence. We don't compromise our own values and our mission. We need to stay focused on that because, again, that is our North Star. And then finally, being selective and strategic. If they're not a fit, don't do it. So again, the question to close out this part is, are they the right fit? And remember what we were talking about with the puzzle piece. It has to be perfect. Now the last one, if we're going to think about exploring sales tactics and prioritization to enable planning and team communication, some of the things that we need to understand about why this is so important is that our ability to effectively plan and communicate across our team helps us to do a couple of things. And the first one is to be agile, to develop and to build, whether it's a program, whether it's a product, whether it's a service. It helps us to align common language and goals. We're managing our expectations appropriately when everybody knows exactly where they stand. And then finally, it's to be able to root our decisions in data. Now, what this really turns into here is we're bringing our team together. And the idea here is to create, and remember these 3 R's, something that is repeatable, reflective, and recognizable. So why is it repeatable? Well, if we're convening teams, we're defining projects, we're finding some intersectionalities between these teams, and setting KPIs for optimization or improvement, this is a process that should happen over and over and over again. This is not a one-off. So this is definitely something that repeats in your organization, which means that we need to facilitate our first meeting to level set everybody's expectations. And we're assigning each team to define a role or some specific KPIs around what they do. They should be able to define and defend these targets that they're going to set. And then we should be allowed to propose deadlines or give them the ability to propose these deadlines. And this is just what you do in your first meeting. Because what starts to happen next is that once you're hosting these and repeating that session, it's all about reviewing. It's about going back to your common language, your definitions, and your assumptions. When things need to change, we change. When we decide that they're going to stay constant and consistent, we keep going down that route. And then when we're looking at our project roadmaps, we need to be able to root our proposals in reality. And if the wheels look like they're starting to fall off, we should definitely address that, which means that we need to also refine our deadlines when necessary. So here's an example of a particular structure that's used for program management as we are about to roll out a program for a particular client. In this hypothetical setting, I have a description with an objective up at the top that has sub-objectives down below. I have a series of OKRs that I have laid out. And then down below, by looking at key results and key actions, which are labeled KR or KA, I now have a lot of specificity around pieces that build to a bigger puzzle. Now, when I look at my time frames off to the right, these are set by my team, they are refined by my team, and they are rooted in the reality of their current week and month of work. But it also helps us here to be able to diagnose if things are falling off track, why they're falling off track, or if we're completely off the mark, why is that? And then off to the far right, when we look at the responsibility of who this is delegated to, if we have a couple of people on our team, the idea is that everybody here plays a part, and that if someone is slipping, we have the opportunity to either A, correct the action, or B, identify as well why these things are happening. And when they work collaboratively, we'll be able to see as they dole out responsibilities individually, who's executing. When we're hosting, these should be weekly or bi-weekly meetings to get updates on progress, and we should be reflecting on data continuously. And again, the most important one, at least for me, is to be able to confirm language and definitions. And the reason why is that if everybody is on different messaging planes, the data that comes back is disjointed. The way that it's communicated will be difficult to understand. And in reality, it does render the weekly or bi-weekly meetings a complete waste of time. So common language and definitions should definitely be first. Team intersectionality here allows for unique adaptations to work. It helps to break down our silos and adjust our culture. We don't want to just have all of the finance people together in a table, all of the marketing people together in a table. We should be able to bring them together to see what they can work on and internally innovate. It helps us to be quicker. It helps us to perceive the problem in a different light, so that down below, the ownership and accountability that takes place will bring to more organizational focus as a whole. Documentation is definitely key. And one of the things that we need to look at here is that there should be record of what's said. There should be record of deadlines. which means that when the meeting is over, we should be sending out a document with adjusted deliverables for everybody, as it is rooted in the new meetings. So the outcome of all of this, again, is that we're saying documentation is important, and our communication strategy down below. Right? If we're documenting, it helps us to be able to feed into that. Our internal responsibilities are taken care of as a result of knowing everything that we had discussed before, and it will help our branding, because all of the actions that we're doing is ultimately to affect our organization, and that will help to improve the image in the community as we start to have to work with these customers that we are engaging in based on our planning meetings. And the conclusion here, scale and replicate only if you can understand your new markets, create your partner profiles, and streamline communications and tracking. When all of this stuff happens, you are golden and ready to be able to do it. So you're ready. And I'm going to hand it back to Sam.
Fantastic, Carlos. Thank you very much. Outstanding content, and I can wholeheartedly endorse all of what Carlos was just saying there. And it may take a couple of rewatches to pull out all the detail and apply it to what you're doing. But trust me, as someone that's been walking that path for a while, there's an awful lot of good stuff in everything you were saying just there. So thank you, Carlos. Perfect. We may end up like lightning yet, hey? But as you can tell, it does take a while to build these organizations. And I just want to give you a couple of extra slides here to build on what Carlos was saying, and a picture to look at. And this in action here is both the training of Social Enterprise Academy new facilitators, a new staff team in Malaysia, and also doing due diligence at the same time. So from what Carlos was just talking about there in terms of entering new markets, an example from us has been that entering a new market takes a while. And there are lots of different piloting and testing activities you can do as you're going, and trying out your different new programs, or in the first selection of who's going to be delivering those programs and representing you, as Carlos was saying. That's all giving you a chance to get alongside and work together to not just review documents and from afar try and judge if it's your right partner, but by working together, you get a very strong sense of whether they are that right fit. So doing the initial assessment is absolutely key, as Carlos was saying, but there's nothing quite like working together to give you a final sense of have we got the right people that we're working with here. And you're achieving things at the same time, which I think is something that's come up in the seminars with this thematic series, that it's not an academic exercise that you can do and then get it all right from there on. You're learning as you go. So creating opportunities to learn as you go is key. And for us in Australia, we had a huge learning experience with our very first partner. Whoever you pick and the market you pick to go into first is where you'll do the majority of your learning. There is a piece of advice in franchising literature that says never be the first franchisee, because somebody that's replicating is learning everything about it on you. And so we were immensely grateful to our Australian partners who were really one of our first experiments in how to replicate. And actually finding the right partner in that instance gave us the time, space, and the quality of input that helped us to co-create our final solutions. So partner selection, absolutely crucial. And also in the Africa context for us, having a team that really understands the local context was absolutely key. And so going around different countries, seeking out partners, we would produce pretty thorough reports and assessments that could come back and be reviewed by our board and give everybody certainty we found the right people in each market. And the people on the screen that you can see here, it's an incredible team that's being built across 4 nations now in Africa for us. And it takes a while, but you can find the right people to work with you. And we are also astounded by the amount of times you need to go back and work with those partners, because no matter how good your partner is, there's always something new to learn. And so building in the time for that due diligence to take place in every location, just like the graph that Carlos showed there, you as an organization may well be growing into your final years, but in each place, you're straight back to startup and you're straight back to entering that new market and finding the right people to represent you. So just a rehash of back in webinar 1, you may remember some of the Social Enterprise Academy slides around growth. And this was some of the modeling that we did, offering a very typical J-curve or S-curve in entrepreneurial terms of what we thought the growth might look like. And the most important thing I want to flag here in relation to pace and so on is in that scenario planning, making sure that you know that you have a pilot phase and then a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3 following that in terms of your growth. How long those different phases last for is down to you and your modeling. And they may not come true as to how your model says they will, but understanding that in each phase there's a different characteristic of what you're doing, as Carlos described. And communicating that with your organization and getting out those original scenario plans so that everybody remembers what the organization is supposed to be working on at this different point in your growth. If it's going to plan or if it's going slightly differently, doesn't matter, as long as you understand what phase you are currently in. And those phases that we predicted there might last 2 years, sometimes ended up lasting for 3 years, and so on, because life is never that simple. And in this model, you may see that we were advised initially that work close to you. So we had originally forecast working in the UK. We found out pretty quickly, and with policy change in government, that actually the UK wasn't a good market for us. It was saturated and the ecosystem didn't exist. So we pivoted straight into some of the other markets where actually there was demand pulling us there straight away. And so our replication looked a lot more like that. The replication piece you can see there starts from 2012 when the different colors start emerging on this graph. And you can see the green color. That really is direct delivery into new markets, which lowered our cost of customer acquisition. By winning contracts to enter new markets, we could, whilst we were doing it, seek out and find the right pair of hands that was going to be the long-term partner and lined up with our partner profile. So all of the different colors, really starting from 2014-15, is where we start to have programs run by our replication partners in those other countries. We found a couple to pilot with in those early years. And then in phase 1, it was about really starting to get that up and running. And then entering phases 2 and 3, we're into a different game where it's more about quality control, development, and scaling much more rapidly over the next few years if the model keeps working. So just an example of exactly what Carlos was talking about. I just want to offer a last few grids as well to give you some tools to help you in prioritizing where to go and how to consider the different markets that you're looking at. So a very simple one is when you're assessing your different markets, using the grids shown earlier in this webinar, think about in terms of the benefit, whether that's impact benefit or financial revenue, and how much effort you need to put in, whether that's translating your materials into different language, or maybe it's travel time. Whatever your effort or benefit criteria are for you, consider where your different opportunities might land on whichever axis first and place them on there. And then what we're trying to do is figure out our priorities. And so we have the PACE model. So you can add in, if it is low effort and of high benefit, then absolutely prioritize that. Go for that, often called the low-hanging fruit. That's the one to go for. Similarly, slightly more effort, again with high benefit, action that. Let's go for that as well, absolutely fine. But once the effort starts to increase and it's becoming a bit more uncertain and the benefit is a bit more marginal, then that's into the consider category. And then those that are much higher effort for very low reward, low benefit, that's your eliminate category. Using a grid like this helps communication around the organization or for the board or for your senior team. If you're trying to consider where to put your energy or what to do, being able to prioritize it like this is absolutely essential. Similarly, different markets might not be able to support your model. You may have areas of market failure which desperately need an impact style accelerator, but simply can't afford it in their geography or with any investment or local ecosystem investment around. Similarly, your partner may be really proficient at sales or maybe operating in a developed economy where there is plenty of sales to be had, but they may also be operating in a very tricky area and simply can't make the sales. So again, there's a push versus pull model here of finance that you can look at. If partners can afford to pay and they've got a market able to support them, then maybe a pull model where you can be bidding for contracts in that area or having replication or license partners that are able to pay you a percentage or a fee. Equally, there may be areas where actually you may be able to source funds from outside of the area and push it in there. So again, knowing your markets and understanding which one to go for. What are your money models? How do you riff with a couple of different business models to make something happen where it needs to, but where the money might not already be, and a typical enterprise may not decide to function in terms of acceleration. Your sales discipline is then really key, building on all of this. So far, we've been talking about different markets and so on, and many of us in the acceleration space are trying to support social entrepreneurs, impact entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs enhance their business skills to really get their impact ideas out into the marketplace. Many of those people will be NGOs and often don't have the sales discipline. And when we're running our organizations, us demonstrating that same sales discipline is absolutely crucial. And whatever framework you like to use, whether it's leads generated into qualified leads, and then more closing of those leads and invoicing them in a typical recruitment sense in your sales funnel, or whether it's acquiring new customers, activating them, retaining them, and generating long-term revenue, whatever the language you like to use, make sure you've got your sales funnel in place and that you're using decent CRM software to communicate around your organization. And in terms of that sales effort, recruitment and reactivation of previous customers as well, that's all going to generate you new business in your new areas. So making sure you've got your sales basics in place is absolutely crucial. But growth really comes from if you can retain and renew your members, keep them for longer, and enhance your lifetime value. How long can you keep a customer with you, coming back and back as a repeat customer? If you can reduce the churn and loss of your existing customers, then that is what is going to give you growth over the long term. Again, looking at your markets, making sure you know which are your beachhead markets. So which are the ones you're going to go to first? And then once you've acquired a status in that market, what then are your follow-on markets? Where are you going to go after that? So at stage 0, looking at your market development, make sure you can see all the total markets that you might enter, and then look at which ones are you really wanting to prioritize first. Then at stage 1, in entering those markets, make sure you're doing your simple assessments. You're not overcommitting, you're not spending too much time, too much effort, too much energy. Look to see if you can win some contracts to do a testing phase. And then in stage 2, more full and deep exploration. If you've got some traction, as Carlos was describing, you can run more programs, train facilitators, build a team, and do that deeper due diligence. And using that staged approach allows you to take action, but without overcommitting or overspending of resource. And only at certain milestones, however long that might take, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, do you start giving away more things or put more effort in response to the reaction from the marketplace. And again, making sure that you are looking at your products and matching them to the market in the new places you're going, asking all the same questions. Make sure you're using grids to communicate well between your team members, and documentation, as Carlos said, is key. Some of the recommended reading for this program is based around new trends from the tech industry, and Growth Hacking is a fantastic read for anybody that's interested in sales and how they can move things forward faster. There's some great learning from the tech industries around process to make sure that you as an organization are moving through a cycle, whether it's weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, whatever your flow, whatever your pace. Make sure you're analyzing your acquisition cycles, ideating new ideas, prioritizing which ones to give it a go, and then testing or A/B testing. Test 2 different ideas at the same time, see which one works, and throw that back into the mix and keep it going, whether that's with your sales process and teams, or whether it's with your product development process. Keep it moving, keep it growing, and you will keep innovating ideas about how to move faster or into new markets more efficiently. Monetization is also a key concept that's covered in some of these books. And again, looking at that sales funnel, look for where your highest potential impact experiments could occur by mapping your customer journey and looking at your acquisition through to retention cycle for those customers. Where are you extracting financial value from those customers? That may seem weird if what you're having to do is to put in grant forms or proposals or bids in procurement terms, but also look at those customers in a broader sense. What is it you can be developing around that? Are there multiple different revenue streams that you could monetize in different ways? Second tip is looking for those pinch points. Where are your poor conversion rates, or where are you not getting success? Where are you not winning? Looking at those missed opportunities, and spend time looking at that with your team to figure out how you can do it better. And then similarly, experimenting, giving it a go, making sure you're testing, and you may come up with something new that's really going to work. And again, most of these texts are focused on money, but here we are, we're trying to create some impact. So layer an impact lens on this. Instead of monetization, we're talking here about kind of an impactization. Look at that same funnel of sales stuff, and where can you add more impact at each different point whilst you're making money? Is there something else you could do that could make money at the same time? And how do you support your licensees or replication partners or teams or new facilitators, new mentors in those different areas, not just extract financial value? Where are the points that they need extra support or backing as well? Key lenses that we add in as impact entrepreneurs. Moreover, like the lightning example, many people are thinking about the big unicorn examples of scaling. And there is, again, a really great book on the reading list there around blitz scaling and some of the strategies used by very famous examples like Airbnb, Facebook, Amazon, etc., to scale more rapidly than they were actually ready for. And it's a great technique. However, there's some great warnings in growth hacking that unless your product market fit is really right, be careful, because you can go too fast and you flame out before you've ever gone into the full market development that you could do. And in growing an accelerator or an incubator, it's exactly the same. Being measured and moderate, managing your cash flow, managing your teams, and managing your growth steadily is a really strong tactic for staying around for the longer term. And similarly, earlier in the series, we covered the idea of optimizing your resources in order to get growth through increased profitability and efficiency. In the growth hacking and blitzscaling era, optimization is up against adaptation, and the markets are changing so quickly, our stakeholders, our ecosystems are developing so quickly, that being able to adapt to new contexts is actually the skill our teams are needing to face as we're growing into new areas. And responding to opportunity is absolutely crucial, which may not give you the time to optimize. And certainly on the Social Enterprise Academy's journey, our biggest challenge has been internally keeping up with the market demand and being able to replicate well into those places and support our teams in those different places that we found interest. But spending the right amount of time on getting our systems right internally, optimizing all of that, has been so challenging in terms of adapting to face the new needs in each new year and in each new market. So that's the big challenge for us in scaling. So whether you're first mover or second mouse, that's often a challenge between us, that by getting in there first, you achieve market dominance, but you may have done that and somebody follows behind you with a slightly better product, and they're the second mouse getting the cheese. And whether it's blitzscaling or growth hacking, or whether you're bootstrapping what you're doing and going nice and slow, all of this is high concept, groovy names, but the key thing is make sure you've got your sales discipline really out front. It's absolutely crucial if you've come from a non-profit background, or if your accelerator is focused on non-profits, that you bring a business edge and that you're looking for new sales and how you can make it work. And it might not work, it might all fall apart tomorrow, but at least we're giving it a go. So just to check back in, reviewing this module, we've been covering an understanding of new market entry with some great grids and different ideas for how we can look at entering those new markets and what we're looking for. We've been considering the process of doing that and how we replicate in new areas with partner profiles and prioritization, and looking at sales tactics and how we communicate across our team the different opportunities that we're going to be going for. There is a seminar following up, so I hope you can join us, and we'll debrief on this webinar and we'll share some experiences of entering new markets, and we're looking at sales tactics and business development. And if you're into the reading for this week is Blitzscaling and Hacking Growth, you can check out growthhackers.com, or both books are available in many bookshops or on Audible as well. Applying learning, if you want to apply these optional tasks, then there's a few things here for you. Doing a quick market assessment and making sure you understand what the ecosystems look like that you're targeting, and how well is your brand or product positioned to fill market needs. You can check back to slides 11 or 12 for the grids and good questions to ask yourselves in doing that. Similarly, creating a scaling partner associate team profile or persona. Who is it you're looking for that's really going to represent you well? And have they got that fit that Carlos was describing earlier on? And then thirdly, looking at your sales prioritization. Have you got your sales funnel nice and clear? And are you looking at the different markets really well that you can communicate across your team why you're going into a different market? Are you being responsive or are you being planned about where you're going? Either is a valid strategy, but can you prioritize where you're going to spend your business development energy for most reward? Next time, webinar 5, we're going to be looking at resourcing scale, where we turn towards looking at the team and resources and how we're growing those as we're doing the market entry, alongside the pricing and financial forecasting linked to looking at the scenarios that we've been talking about this week. And so next week is building on all of that as we move towards the end of the series. Thank you for listening. I hope you can find more resources back on the Frontier Incubator's website. Please do go back there and listen to other modules from other thematic webinar series, particularly around building mentor networks and looking at the different business models as well for financial sustainability. Hopefully all this works together. And for any other questions and any other materials, do keep an eye on the Scaling Programs channel on Slack. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the seminar.